Good morning and welcome to a morning message. My name is William Michael Forbes. I'm a spiritual medium, a channel, and an intuitive life coach. And I'm constantly learning new things. When you open your consciousness up to a reality, there are different levels of awareness, different levels of consciousness that you can access. You begin to open your body and your mind up to new levels of awareness, deeper meaning and understanding about what life is, who you are, and who you think you are. And they're very different things. And this morning, as I was ready to take the dog for a walk, this being called Babaji comes to me. And Babaji, I don't know much about him. I just know that he was an ascended master, that he was a very enlightened being. What else do I remember about him? That he came to me about 4 months ago in a meditation just briefly and said, "I am Babaji," and that was it. And, and this morning, on my walk, he comes to me again and he says to me, meditation is essential for shedding yourself of the old one. And I said, "What do you mean the old one?" And he said, "The old one is that self that is not the self, but the self that pretends to be a self." And I asked, "Well, can you be more specific about that?" They said, "Who you are being is dependent on what you are thinking about, what you are focusing on, what you are holding as true or false. These are the things that become your being." And I said, "Well, what does this have to do with meditation?" And he said, meditation is that place where you get to liberate your awareness from being the old one. And I said, "Well, how does that work actually?" He said, being the old one is all of the thoughts and this clothing that you find yourself in, this body, which is simply just a vehicle that you are using. It is not who you are, but it is something that you affect with who you are and who you are not. And I said, "Well, what do you mean by who I am not and who I are?" And he said, "Who you are, you cannot know until you are removed from the old one." And he kept repeating the words, the old one, quite frequently. So I'm going to paraphrase what I understand his meaning about that concept of why meditation is essential. From my experience, meditation allows me to distance myself from the senses, the 5 physical senses of sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell, to not be distracted or caught up in the world. That's one aspect of meditation I understand. The second aspect of meditation I understand is that I get to become being. It's the only word I can put to it. I guess what he calls the old one is the 5 physical senses, and what I call the old one would be the 5 physical senses, but everything we've acquired about what we think is true about life while living in a physical body. And he stressed the importance that meditation is the only place that you can learn to refamiliarize yourself, to become comfortable again with who you are, and then to enact the being that is you through this mechanism, to express that essential nature that transcends the considerations of the day-to-day activities of your normal thinking, feeling, and believing. To be able to transcend the old being. I'm trying to I would just call that the personality, the personalized reality that we've acquired from our environment. But he was very clear. He said it's important you spend as much time as you need to unbecome what you have become and to restore what you are to what you are. And for me, I get a feeling when he spoke these words, the feeling I got from him when he spoke those words was a feeling of freedom, a feeling of like letting your breath go, like you take your breath in and you exhale. And that's the feeling I got when I contemplated the feeling of his words. One of the things in being a spiritual medium, it's not some airy-fairy thing, it's something anybody can actually do, because it's just a matter of tuning our awareness from what we're familiar with onto other things that we're not familiar with, to become detached from what we know. As he calls it, the old being. And again, when you understand how to make that detachment, meditation is the key tool for doing that. And I asked him, why are you bringing this to me today? And he said, because I need to do it more. And I said, why do I have to do it more? He said, because you're close. He said, I'm close. I said, what's that mean? He said, there are those that contemplate and that consider things and look deeply at what those things mean. But that is still an externalized understanding of what you are not an internal knowing of who you are. He said, and beings that allow themselves to contemplate are just on the very first inklings of what he called meditation. He said meditation was the ability to literally to be completely detached, not connected to this world, but to still be present and mindful and aware that you are being, that you are endless being, connected to all that is, but not identified with anything of that which all is. So oneness, right? What comes to my mind when I hear him say that? Oneness, which is what Buddha speaks about a lot. Oneness, to be aware of all but attached to none. But today was the first time Babaji had spoken to me other than his name, that first time 3 months ago. And when he said I had to meditate more, because I meditate anywhere from 1 to 3 hours a day, depending on what it is, my body and mind try to say, oh, we got to go there, I got to do this. That's the time to meditate, when my mind tries to go running off into the future or running back into the past. Anytime my mind and body does that, I bring myself back to here and now. I breathe, I relax, I let the body go, I let my mind become quiet. And he told me that I am close. And so I said, why do you want me to share this with you? He says, it's important because humanity is close. And I thought, well, that's amazing. What do you mean humanity is close? Humanity as a whole is moving away from the suffering of the old being, moving away from that. And as it moves away from that, a new self begins to emerge that is not of the old. He said, it's hard to recognize in the beginning as you start to meditate, as you begin to let go of your attachment to your thoughts and your emotions, as you begin to release your awareness from this world. You will not lose, you will gain, you will become more of what you already are. And it almost sounds paradoxical to me, but in reality it's a truth. I know that for me, meditation is literally like as important to me as breathing is. And he said it was important to communicate that to all of you that are listening to this, to share the knowledge that to get out of the craziness, the craziness of your mind. It's important you learn to understand that you are not your mind. To get out of the distraction of your senses, it is important you know that you are not the senses. From this perspective, you can begin to liberate yourself to the purpose and meaning of your being, rather than trying to find purpose and meaning through your 5 physical senses. It is very important that you make this step. If you do not make this step, you will be bound to repeat the same process of being separated from what you are, perhaps for many lifetimes. But humanity as a whole is coming to that place where the suffering is so great that it is not acceptable anymore. And so many of you now are beginning to open your consciousness, your awareness, back to that which you are and away from that which you're familiar with, what you already know. For what you already know can only give you more of what you already know. It is important to understand this. Now that was about the extent of my communication with him this morning. I feel his presence still with me because he's monitoring what I'm saying to make certain I don't deviate that far. And it's really fascinating. There are teachers, beings you can learn from on realms of consciousness, that as you learn to change and alter your perception and awareness of who you are from what you think you are, you begin to liberate yourself to different ranges of consciousness. Now, I'm going to put a rider in there because one of the important things for me was understanding, and it was a very powerful lesson for me, that it's important you understand that you must train your mind and you must train your body to be what you need them to be, rather than being subjective to what they believe they are. Because remember, our bodies have been taught certain things, your mind has been given certain knowledge, we all have. And that knowledge either expands who we are or contracts who we are. Gives us greater opportunity or less opportunity, makes us feel more joy or less joy. And when you adjust your frequency to a frequency of joy, you're going to experience things in the world that match it. And right now, at this moment, every one of us is experiencing our world in a way that matches precisely what our thoughts are constructed of, what our emotions are constructed of, and what we give awareness to, what we give attention to. And the minute you change what you give attention to, you change what you perceive, you change what you'll experience. And from my perspective, when you learn to raise your vibration up by getting rid of thoughts, getting rid of emotions, getting rid of behaviors and habits that harm your body, that pollute your mind, you start to cultivate greater awareness. But I found I just had to come home. Like I literally came in from walking the dog to do this because he said it was important. And I'm also learning when you start to open up yourself to higher ways of being, like to be more loving, to be more kind, to be more joyous, to be still, to be quiet, to be unhurried, or to be hurried slowly. There are different ways of being that will facilitate this state that Babaji and many other master beings call meditation, because meditation is the restoration of who you are to who you are. It is the liberation of who you are from being subjective to the physical form and moving into a position of creation where you get to create and design the expression and effects of your expression in the world, rather than feeling like what's happening to you because of what's going on in the world is happening to you because of what's going on in the world, when in reality what's happening in the world is an exact representation of what's going on us individually and collectively as a species. And it doesn't matter what our skin color is, what our sexual orientation is, what our political focus is. The truth is what is going on within each and every single human being on this planet is having a collective net result that we see as the overall state of being, of life for humans on this planet. And the minute more and more of us begin to step out of that old being into this awareness that we can choose to be an extension, expression of love, that we can choose to not have to learn from pain and suffering anymore, that we can choose to deliberately and intentionally create experience consciously and not unconsciously. And this is very important. I didn't want to get into too much because the morning messages are designed to be fairly short and simple and digestible. And when they asked me to start doing this 4 weeks ago, I said, and I've been having to learn a routine. And whenever you have to do something new, you have to retrain your mind and you have to retrain your body to do these new things. It has to be literally taught and trained to function differently than what it's been taught to be functioning as it is now. And that takes practice. And if there's anything that's been said here today that doesn't come across clear, you want to know more about it, please leave your questions and comments in the comment section below. And I'll do the best to answer them, or I'll ask Babaji or others to come through and answer them again. At this point in my experience as a spiritual medium, there is sometimes absolutely no predictability about what's going to come in, who's going to communicate with me. Like, as I said, I was about to go out the door, and all of a sudden he comes in and says, meditation is very important, starts communicating with me. I am Babaji. And yet at the same time, I can turn around, I can close my mind, close my body senses down, and I can ask for a particular being to come through as well. And anybody has the capacity, we all have the capacity to tune into different levels of knowledge and consciousness. And it's one of the reasons why we go to gurus or teachers or mentors or courses and classes, is because we're trying to find a way out of the limiting systems that we find ourselves stuck in. And that's everything that humanity is struggling to free itself from, is the old being, the old paradigm of humanity that says pain and pleasure are the way we get what we want. Hurting others or taking without regard for others is how we get what we need. And these are old models that have never worked. They haven't worked for over 70,000 years as a species. They haven't been working in the last 100 years as a species. If anything, we can see as much growth as we're seeing much suffering increase. But that suffering is unnecessary when we recognize the possibility that life can be an expression, an intentional expression of love and compassion and playfulness and joy. And I think that's a really good note to end this morning message on. I want to thank you for taking the time to come and listen to this. And please, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, share the video, and give it a thumbs up. Much love to all of you. Again, thank you for coming out, and have a wonderful and a joyful day. Bye for now.